Hello, everyone. How are we doing? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know it's all different hours for all of you all around the world, and I am so excited. We have so many people that signed up for this, and we have so much good material to cover. So let's give everybody a minute or two to get in here. I want to say hello. Let's see, we have Daniel and we have Irene and we have Mel B and we have Lori and Sandy and Shelly and Kitty. Hello, everyone. Gloria, Anna, hello. And we see, uh, let's see, Nori and let's see, Lori and Donna and Ritzy. I am so excited. Everybody's got some really good vibes in here, right? Let's see. I see a lot of regulars in here from the live Q&As that we do on Sundays, and I'm so happy to see some new ones in here too. We've got Jonah, and we've got Tammy, and Rowan. Hello, hello, hello. My goodness, Vicky, I can't keep up, and Debbie. I am so excited. Here we go. Let's see. Wayne from the West Coast. Hello. And April, Louise, and Edith. So we have a jam-packed workshop that we are going to cover today. So as all of you are kind of getting in here, I just wanted to remind you to grab a pen or paper or have something. Hopefully you had time to print out the workbook. That'll help you kind of follow along. But if you didn't, that's okay. You can just have a tablet or have something, a pen, paper, some kind of notepad that you can take some notes. You're going to want to jot it down. I'm going to jam pack this as much as I possibly can. It's always a balance of trying to find the alignment between trying to give you as much as I can without making you feel like your head's going to fall off and just kind of explode with too much information. I want to make this fun. So go ahead and let's take a look. And I see all of you coming on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So now also, before we get started, I wanted to remind you, whatever you have running in the background and Facebook and music and phones, remember to silence those so that you can give 100% of your attention and really dive in here. We're going to have some time for some questions about channeling at the end. So just jot your questions down. We'll have a time that way I don't have to kind of scroll all the way back up the chat. Just hold those questions until the end, and we'll dive into those. And make sure that they're questions about channeling. If you have questions specifically for the angels, of course, I'd be happy to channel that for you, but that's on the live Q&As on Sunday. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, I see a lot of you. I recognize a lot of faces and a lot of names on here from the live Q&As. And certainly a lot of different workshops that we've done. But for every single workshop that I do, I really like to have a mantra. And my mantra is always, no matter whether someone becomes a student of mine or not, that you walk away feeling inspired and excited and motivated to take action. And that's really what I want from this workshop for all of you today. So I'm going to do my very best for all of you. But most importantly, this is supposed to be fun, right? The angels always say that channeling is never supposed to be a chore. So have some fun. We've got good vibes, really good community, tons of really good, amazing souls in here. So the angels always say that when like minds come together for a common purpose, that the energy is magnified. And all of us coming together with this common intention and this purpose, of course, wanting to connect with all of these beings in the higher realms. And not only do I feel all of the energy from all of you and the excitement, but we've got tons and tons of angels and beings and non-physical beings that are trying to amplify this energy for us as well, trying to make it as easy as possible. So we have a lot to cover, but one of my most favorite techniques that the angels have shared. And I wish I had it when I first learned how to channel, but of course, I needed to be able to channel accurately with the angels before I got it. But they are going to share how to quiet your mind in 5 seconds or less. I know it's a big claim, but it works and I love it. And everybody that comes into contact with that technique loves it. It works great. So stay tuned. We're going to have that towards the end of the workshop. Now, as we start to kind of dive into this material, I want to kind of get a read on maybe some of the experiences that you've had. So let me know in the chat, have you ever tried to connect with your own guides or your angels or your higher self? Just yes or no, let me see. I know that a lot of you were very excited and emailed me before the workshop with all sorts of questions and wanted to know about maybe some concerns that you had, but I'm seeing tons and tons of yeses, and we've got some no's in there. We've got some no's, but mostly yeses, which I love. I love that you're diving in there and trying to communicate with them. Now, if you're one of the ones that said no, what do you think stopped you? Or if you've connected with them, but you feel like you want to amplify that a bit more, what do you think might be restricting you from that? I know a lot of you, when I'm talking to those that are trying to channel, there are oftentimes the fears that tend to block, you get concerned and you kind of get in your head. And we're going to address some of those because I know a lot of you had them. And that's why I made this workshop, because a lot of you wanted to talk all about channeling. So whether you've never channeled before or if you'd just like to improve upon your ability, I want to let you know you are in the right place because we have a lot of really good material to go over. Whether you want to channel so that you can gain access to that guidance and that perspective, or if you're looking to improve your life, you're in the right place. And if you want to find a simple and effective way to be able to communicate with your guides or your angels or your higher self, then again, you are in the right place. I try to make this as simplified as possible. One thing I've learned from the angels over the years is humans love to complicate things. And so just trying to make this as simple as possible is something that is high on my radar. Now, many of you are familiar with the guidance that the angels give, and certainly you hear it regularly on the live Q&As. But how great would it be if you could tap into that for your own self and communicate with the higher realms to receive information on a daily basis so that you could communicate about the things that matter to you, the questions that matter to you, so that you can improve your life, know if you're going on the right path or what decisions would be best. They are fantastic at sharing that higher perspective. So if you are looking to improve upon that, this is what we're going to talk about today. Now, I know a lot of you are familiar with the live Q&As, but I drink a ton of water. It's good for amplifying. So let's begin by clearing the air, because there's a lot of myths about channeling. And I know a lot of you are at various different stages in your channeling ability. Some of you are brand new. You've never channeled before, or you're just dipping your toe in it. You've been reluctant for lots of different reasons. And some of you are more well-versed in this. So let's talk about, I've kind of picked 4 of the main myths that I typically run into when I'm talking to somebody about channeling. So myth number 1 is that channeling is only reserved for a lucky few. No. Channeling is an innate ability that every single one of us is born with the ability to do. Albeit certainly we let it atrophy over time as we begin to rely on our 5 physical senses. We tend to kind of put that ability that we're born with on the back burner, and we use those 5 physical senses to kind of navigate our physical reality to determine what's real and what's not. But every single one of us, without exception, was born with the capability to be able to tap into and receive that energy, that vibration. Now, another myth, myth number 2, is that channeling takes years to achieve. Here's the caveat to that. It certainly doesn't have to. It is something that I like to say there's no finish line. It is something that will continue to progress and evolve and blossom over time. I've been doing it for years and years, and I'm still continuing to open myself up to more and more capabilities. But that doesn't mean that it needs to take years before you actually can rely on it so that you can use it in your day to day life. You can trust it more. You can rely on that guidance that they're sharing and be able to get to a point where you really feel confident that I got this. I can really do this. So, taking that faster path is something that I've really tried to hone in and help because if you're like me, you don't have all that much patience and you want it now. You want to be able to communicate and you want to be able to get that information. I get it. Myth number 3. Once you open yourself up to channeling, that you'll be constantly bombarded. Most of us have seen that movie The Sixth Sense, and you see this poor child that sees all of these ghosts all over the place, and you worry about, well, what if I open myself up to channel and everyone is kind of just, now you've got these spirits kind of walking around your house and now you're aware of all of it. It's absolutely natural. I think a lot of people get worried about that, but one thing that the angels have shared is that it's very much like a telephone. If you want to talk to somebody on the phone, the other party has to have a phone too. And if you want to call someone, then you need to call them deliberately. You can't just press any old number, you have to call them. And so if someone calls you and it's not a good time to talk, or you don't want to talk to that person, you just don't answer the phone. So you're always in the driver's seat when you're communicating with the higher realms. And you're the one that gets to pick who you're going to communicate with, which is, it opens up a whole new world because there's so many different beings that are so eager to connect with us. It's so much fun to get to play with communicating with all these different beings. And I know all of you have different interests and passions and are particularly drawn to a particular collective, or some of you really want to talk to angels, and some of you really want to talk to your higher self, and some of you really want to talk to loved ones that you very much miss and want to be able to connect with them. And you're able to do all of that. Now, for those of you that are thinking, well, I'm already very sensitive, for those of you that you kind of soak energy up like a sponge and you go into any environment and you can kind of just feel the energy in it. You can feel the high vibration or you can feel the tension in it. And many will come to me and say, well, is this going to make this worse for me? I'm already hypersensitive. Is this going to make me even more sensitive? And my answer is no. And the reason is because you're going to learn how to use this as an asset instead of a detriment. This is a beneficial tool that you have. If you already have this fine tuned and you're thinking, oh, yeah, I'm very receptive to energy, wonderful. Now you can use it because realize you're not just receptive to negative energy, you're receptive to positive energy as well. And so if that is something that's already sharpened for you, you're already ahead. So really learning how to cultivate it, learning how to shield yourself when you're in those kinds of environments so that you don't have to soak it up like a sponge, but instead you allow it to transmute and kind of flow through, much like a screen door, instead of kind of soaking it up and being a soggy, wet sponge. Now, myth number 4 is that a lot of people are concerned that channeling can be dangerous. And a lot of different concerns kind of are on the peripheral of this. And that myth that it can be dangerous is something that the angels are always adamant about. You can only experience what you resonate with. So when you see those shows, or you see people going into these old creepy haunted mansions, or they're looking in these dark places, or they're going into these prisons and they're trying to find ghosts, that's what they're resonating with. That's what they're looking for, and they're going to find it. But if your intention is to connect with high vibrational beings that have the best of intentions, that help you navigate through your reality in a wonderful way, that can provide wonderful perspectives, then that's who you're going to connect with. And the angels go into great detail, certainly on the live Q&As, of how we tune to our reality. And essentially our vibration matters a lot. Our intention behind it matters a lot. And so wherever that intention is of who you're wanting to connect with is essentially going to direct that. It's kind of like the calling number that you're using on the phone to pick who you're going to talk to. So you're here, and obviously you want to learn how to channel, or you want to learn how to kind of trust that ability more. So tell me, why did you want to channel? What made you want to channel? I'll tell you just briefly what made me want to channel. I remember picking up a book by Edgar Casey, the great Edgar Casey, and I also read a book, Seth Speaks, by Jane Roberts. And I remember being absolutely fascinated that the um, overall messages were being sent from the higher realms, that I was actually receiving information from the non physical beings. And this is something that I remember thinking, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. I want to do that. I don't know how to do that, but I would love to. And of course, I had all these different concerns that many of you probably are having as well of, am I really going to be able to do this? And how do I even start? And how do I know it's real? And don't worry, we're going to address these. Or I'm going to jam pack it as much as I can. But let me see. I see, yeah, a lot of you are right there with me of, you wanted it for guidance. You wanted to be able to receive that information so that you could benefit your life and those of others. And I see clarity in here, and I see I want to learn how to trust it. And channeling's always fascinated me. It's fascinating. It is fascinating to be able to communicate with the higher realms and to be able to do that on a day-to-day basis. I can tell you from experience, it's amazing. It's an absolute blessing and benefit to my life, no doubt about it. So here's the dilemma that most people have when they're trying to connect, that they have a desire to connect. Of course, you're here, you want to be able to, you'd love to be able to talk to your angels, but you feel blocked. And every time you try to receive that guidance, it just kind of crickets. You just don't hear anything, or you don't receive any messages, or it comes through spontaneously, and you don't know how you did it when you do. And learning how to do it when you're wanting to and you have a particular question tends to be more difficult. So oftentimes I've found that the biggest reason why a lot of people get blocked is because of different fears. And so I want to address those three big fears that most of us have. And I know for my own self, I've had most of them. So number one, in fact, I don't think I've ever met anyone that didn't have this one when they're first beginning to communicate, is, what if I'm just making it up? What if my mind is just filling in the blanks? It was a wonderful coincidence and it turned out to be right, but what if that was all it was? What if I just made that up? And really starting to learn how to trust and validate that is essential in being able to really open yourself up to receiving that information, because they're constantly streaming it. They're constantly sharing that information, but are we picking up on it? Are we receiving it? Are we getting it? Are we getting what they're sending? What are we on? Number two is, what if I'm not capable? And again, every single one of us was born with the ability to translate that environment of the energy that we were in without using any verbal words. None of us were born with the ability to communicate with a verbal language. We had to rely on our ability to receive the information and kind of translate it using our path of least resistance. And then, as we started to grow, we started to rely more heavily on verbal communication. We learned how to speak. We learned how to kind of move about and use our five physical senses. And so that muscle atrophied. But it would be like if you put your arm in a sling for an entire year and you didn't ever use it. What would happen to your arm? It wouldn't disappear, it wouldn't fall off, but it would be quite weak. It would need a lot of extra attention to redevelop that, but it didn't disappear. And that's the same thing with your ability to channel. It didn't go anywhere, but you need to flex it now so that you can get it stronger, so you can rely on it just like you do with anything else in your body. Your muscles, they need to be used in order to work. Now, Number three is, what if I connect with a negative energy? And again, keeping that focus on who you're wanting to connect with is essential. And some of you feel more, you feel safer when you put up a shield, or you do a different kind of prayer, you call on different angels. It's entirely up to you. But realize that your intention of connecting with the kinds of beings you're wanting to summon and to call in is going to be paramount in who you're going to actually draw in and connect with. Because I can tell you, there are so many non physical beings that are so incredibly eager to connect with us and to assist us and to help us in every way possible that you just couldn't possibly run out of beings to communicate with. And there's wonderful ones to enjoy the communication with. Now, I remember being in your position of really wanting, I really wanted so badly to be able to connect with um, my guides or my angels, just like Edgar Casey or just like um, Jane Roberts. And for those, they channeled a bit differently. They were relatively unconscious and then were channeling and streaming this information. I found it fascinating. And at the time, I thought that might be the only way you're supposed to do it, or the only way you'd really get clear information. And I started to learn much more about it. And certainly we all channel in our own unique ways. But at the time, I was investing in stock options. It's extremely stressful. I was always filled with anxiety. It wasn't something that I enjoyed. It was just something that was a means to an end and created abundance. And now that I look back on it, I was actually a bit miserable now, seeing how good I really could feel. But sometimes you don't realize that when that's kind of your day to day. And all of that wasn't enough to get my attention. I continued to just kind of walk down that path, being stubborn. And eventually, I needed a really big wake up call to get my attention. And so all of that money that I had been investing and cultivating and growing evaporated in the flash crash in a matter of 15 minutes. It was all gone. I was I was devastated. I didn't have a plan B. I didn't plan on that happening, and I never really thought about what would I really want to do. If I picked anything that I really wanted to do, what would I want to do? And so I was flying back, and my plane got rerouted, and I was not supposed to be on this little plane. And as it would have it, I kind of just had my book. I was tired, and I found my seat, and I saw this, like, literally, this woman was just glowing. She was so happy. She just beamed lovely energy. And so I sat down and smiled, and I just still intended to really just read my book. But she started chatting. And just as we were taking off, she said, I get so nervous when I fly. I just always envision angels just holding up the plane as we fly. And it got my attention because I'd always believed in angels. I just didn't go around telling people or talking about it, but I believed in them, and it kind of broke down that wall. And so we had a lovely conversation, and she was actually from Australia, and she was coming back from an animal communication course. And at first, I'm thinking, this woman is either nuts or that is the coolest thing I've ever heard. And so we get off the plane, and I couldn't get to the bookstore fast enough. And turns out there's tons of books about animal communication. I devoured them. And I started communicating with our cat at the time, Sophie. And that's how I really felt comfortable communicating and channeling at first. To me, it still felt scary. I think about it now, it's kind of funny, but I felt scared to communicate with a non physical being. And an animal in front of me felt safer. So I really cultivated that ability for the first year and got validation and proof and continual information that I couldn't have known consciously, which really helped me kind of feel more confident about that ability. But from there, it kind of was like a trail of cookie crumbs. And I just kept kind of devouring metaphysical information, and one thing led to the next. As I'm sure many of you have your path of just kind of awakening to all of this information and shattering all of these different foundational beliefs that kind of led me to this place where I was finally ready to connect and communicate with my own guardian angel. And he stepped forward, and his name is Zachary. And I really built a wonderful relationship and cultivated that with Zachary. And he essentially, as I found out later, is actually a part of the angelic guides, the collective of angels. It's made up of thousands of angels, of which I channel publicly for people all around the world. But looking back at that, for me, it was something that was helpful. It would have been hard for me to hold the energy of an entire collective, but more importantly, I think in my logical mind, it was just easier to be able to communicate with seemingly one being as opposed to many. That's not for everybody. That was just my personal experience. Now, when I had that breakthrough, I had all sorts of experiences and the information kind of started to rush in, but I got nervous and I felt all of these physical experiences and I started to feel this buzzing inside and I got nervous and I kind of wanted to shut it off. But it was kind of like hitting the gas and hitting the brake and hitting the gas and hitting the brake. And so eventually it really started to kind of flow and I started to be able to communicate with my guardian angel. Now, many of you have various different experiences of communicating with your guides. Maybe you've communicated with your angel. Maybe you've had some premonitions. Maybe you get dreams, or maybe you just kind of get these knowings that you shouldn't consciously know. But it happens spontaneously. And when you try to do it, what do you think is the reason it doesn't come through when you're wanting it to? What I have found is that the number one mistake that most people are making, yes, fear, of course, is extremely restrictive. And when we're afraid, of course, it kind of blocks and closes that channel. But more importantly, is that the number one mistake that most people end up making is that most people try too hard. And I realize that's a bit ironic, but because you're wanting it so badly. And I get that. You want to hear it, you want to receive it, however you're receiving it, you want to be able to receive it accurately. But it's kind of like if you were to pick up a big handful of sand, but instead you held it really tight because you didn't want it to go anywhere. And what happens? Most of it falls out of your hand because there's too much resistance. There's no place for the sand. But if you were to take that same amount of sand and you just cup it and you just hold it, and there's just an effortlessness to it, that it just stays there. There's plenty of room for it and it's effortless. And so when you think back on those moments of when it came through spontaneously, you realize you weren't trying then either. So how do you get to those moments of, well, how do I get to it and want to receive it but not try? And I think a lot of humans, a lot of us get into this pattern of feeling like we need to ramrod the door down. You need to make it work. That if it's not working, you need to try harder. And I think a lot of us do that. And it tends to create resistance for us in all sorts of ways. And this is no different. It's the same thing when you go to channel and you try really, really hard and you get frustrated by the fact that there's just nothing. Why can't I do it? What am I doing wrong? What's going on? Why did I do it then and I can't do it now? And a lot of those thoughts start repelling the very thing that you're wanting to receive. You're wanting to be able to receive that clear guidance. So one thing that I did not know when I first began channeling, there's a lot of things I didn't know when I first began channeling. Angels have taught me a lot over the years, but I didn't know that crystals can help amplify your channeling ability. I'm sure we've got some crystal gurus on here, but crystals are a wonderful way to amplify our energy. They amplify the energy in the environment and essentially do different things. And so I wanted to share just a few different crystals that you could use. You could go and get them all. Maybe you have some of them, but they're wonderful and they are my picks for helping you to strengthen that communication. So number one, and I brought them for you so you could see them if you weren't familiar with them. Number one, my favorite is amethyst. See this lovely, pretty amethyst, this nice, beautiful purple. And it really isn't a matter of size. It is more so which one you resonate with, which one do you really like. And so I find going and getting them in person works better for me personally, but some people get them when they connect with them online. So that's fine too. But amethyst is wonderful. It helps to promote a peaceful mind. It really helps to heighten our intuition. It helps to clear our third eye. And it really helps kind of temper some of our anxiety, maybe some depression. And so it's a really calming stone. It's a wonderfully effective stone and really perfect for heightening our intuition and communicating with the higher realms, whomever you might want to communicate with. So amethyst. Then we have celestite. Celestite is also a really nice healing crystal. See, like that. Nice, pretty, milky blue, beautiful. And it, of course, is a powerful healing stone, but it also strengthens our connection with the divine. And it helps, certainly helps with bad dreams. We gave this to our oldest son. We have three little boys. We have a 6-year old, a 3-year old, and almost 2-year old little boy. And they essentially love this one. And Mason likes this one a lot because it helps with bad dreams. But it's also very, very good for helping us to calm and have that relaxation. It's got a very calming energy. And in doing so, it makes it that much easier to connect with the higher realms. So, celestite. Then we have cat's eye, which is really cool. See, look at this. My sister gave this to me. And it is kind of looks like a cat's eye. And it really helps with concentration. Helps with concentration, and it is very good for your crown chakra, which, of course, is really great for communicating with the higher realms. So, very, very good for enhancing your intuition, very, very good for clearing out your crown chakra. And it also helps with that self confidence, whether you're doubting yourself in just your everyday life or whether you're doubting yourself in your ability to be able to communicate clearly. Still a very good stone to have. Really pretty too. Nice to look at. Then we have obsidian. Obsidian is a really good grounding stone. And so for those of you that are wanting some protection, that feel as though you could dispel some negative energy, or you want to make sure you don't connect with negative energy, or you feel like there's negative energy around you, this is a really good stone to have, as it transmutes negative energy and it just kind of continually clears the environment and kind of absorbs that for you and transmutes it, kind of like nature. If you go outside and just kind of walk for a few minutes, you find that you just kind of release energy much easier. And so this stone is very helpful in doing that. And then we have labradorite. Labradorite is my favorite. And I don't know if you can see just how pretty it is. See all the shimmers? And this is the stone of transformation. Really, really good. And there are so many crystals that you could literally say are very helpful to communicating with the higher realms, but these are just some of them. But labradorite is a wonderful stone for really helping in times of transformation, helping you to transition in new experiences, helps you to solidify and clarify your goals. It helps to heighten your intuition, of course, as all of these do. That's why I picked them. And really helps you hone in on your spiritual abilities, being able to receive it clearly, and also protects you from negativity. So the labradorite and the obsidian is wonderful for just adding some extra protection. And the labradorite also is wonderful for clearing your chakras, really your chakras above your heart. So your throat chakra for communication, and your third eye and your crown chakra, also really good and all necessary in order to be aligned, to be able to communicate clearly with the higher realms. So all of which are really helpful. And this one, I see that my son placed, he loves crystals. And this one he found in one of those, I don't know if you have them, but they're like, you go and gem for crystals, and it's really large. I could not believe he found this in there, but he gave this and put this on here. Evidently, he thought that was useful too, and it's a clear quartz. But certainly there are so many crystals, and crystals are really a wonderful way of amplifying our intentions and really helping us with maybe some areas that we might need some extra assistance in. So certainly if you feel drawn to any of those, by all means, go and get them, or get them all. So who will you be able to communicate with? This is a fun one, because once you learn how to flex this muscle, there's really no limit to who you can begin to communicate with. Again, it's thinking of it like a telephone. Who are you going to call? You can call anybody that has a telephone, right? So you can communicate with your guides. You can communicate with your angels. You can communicate with loved ones. I know a lot of you have loved ones that have passed on, and you would love to be able to even just hear just something from them. You can communicate, of course, with your higher self or your soul, whatever you feel comfortable calling it, and animals, which I'm an animal lover. I absolutely love communicating with animals, and they always have a lot to say. There's certain species that tend to be a bit more talkative. Many of you are familiar with Sebastian, who may or may not make an appearance, but he is our flat-faced orange cat that always comes for the live Q&As because he loves the energy. They're very receptive to high vibrations. All animals are. And it's another really fun way to be able to flex that muscle. And for me personally, it was a way for me to feel more comfortable in flexing that muscle in a space that felt safe. I felt safe being able to communicate when I first started communicating with them, with animals. It felt innocent. It felt safe. And then eventually I learned enough and kind of shattered enough foundational beliefs and kind of fears that were irrational at the time, so that I could begin communicating with non-physical beings and communicating with beings that have passed on. I can communicate with lots of them, and you can too once you really begin to play with this. And you can communicate. I see some of you. You can communicate with wild animals. You can communicate with domestic animals. Either one. But I do find that the domestic animals tend to be more chatty. I don't know, maybe because they're around us more. So how do our guides actually communicate with us? How are they communicating? Are they speaking a language? What are they doing? They are sending energy. They're sending energy. And through that energy, they're really sending a vibration. It's a vibrational signal, if you will. And our brains are a transmitter and a receiver of vibration. As I said before, we naturally do this. The second that we have a physical body, we naturally, well, really even before we have a physical body, but as soon as we're incarnated, we begin translating with our brains the vibration of the energy in our environment. And energy knows no place, it knows no time. So it can travel. And essentially, when our guides are sharing that information with us, they are not speaking any particular language. They are not sharing pictures. They are not sending a feeling. They are essentially sharing energy, which we are then translating. Now, how do we interpret that? How do we actually translate that information? How does that process happen? We use the three most common methods of channeling information. Now, I'm not talking about channeling artistically or dance or creatively or singing, all wonderful ways of being able to channel, but I'm talking about channeling information. And so there's really three most common ways of channeling information. So clairaudience is, and just happens to be, my path of least resistance. It's always been the path that was the widest open. Now, certainly over the years, it's kind of progressed and developed and morphed into other things, but clairaudience is when you are able to either hear with your physical ears or with your spiritual ears, as I like to call it. And so with your spiritual ears, you'll oftentimes find that you hear words, you'll hear a language, kind of like when I'm talking to the angels just for myself, I'm not channeling for anyone else, and I'm just kind of talking to them. It'll be like a dialogue, like I'm talking back and forth, me and you. And whereas when I'm channeling for all of you on the live Q&As and we're talking about all sorts of wonderful topics, it's a bit different. And so it's not like I'm hearing it and then repeating it. It kind of, we're morphing our energy together, for lack of a better word. Actually, this happened recently. An example of hearing something with your physical ears is, we were sitting there, all five of us, the three boys and my husband, and we were sitting in the living room. It was at night, and we were watching something, watching a movie together, and the home phone started ringing. It just rang once. And it's connected to, I don't know if any of you have that, but it's connected to the cable so that you can see who's calling. And it didn't show up. And so I just looked over at my husband and I said, "Did you hear that?" He said, "Hear what?" I said, "Did you hear the phone ring?" He said, "No, the phone didn't ring." I said to the boys, I said, "Did you hear the phone ring?" They said, "No, the phone didn't ring." Well, the phone rang in my reality. So I heard the one ring and I just started to laugh because I thought, somebody's trying to get in touch. And that's where you're hearing it with your physical ears. I don't typically hear the entire dialogue with my physical ears, though you could. I just typically hear it with my spiritual ears. Then we have clairvoyance. Now, Clairvoyance is where you are translating the energy that they're sending, and you're seeing either images, you're seeing pictures, you're seeing maybe a vision, maybe you're seeing a premonition, and some of you are seeing symbols, and those symbols are different for all of you. Some of you will see a particular symbol and think that's what this means. Or some of you will see, for instance, you see a red bird. For some, it means that people have passed on and the loved ones are trying to connect with you. Whereas someone else sees a red bird and says, no, that's all about um, family, or that's all about abundance. Your symbols are specific to you. It's not about what others are translating it to be, because you're the one translating it. So you'll find that as you flex that muscle a bit more, when you see a particular symbol, if that's your path of least resistance, that, oh, that's my symbol for when someone loved sports or whatever that might be. And so when you're clairvoyant, you may also find that you're bringing through visions, or you're bringing through different pictures or images. And an example of that is, for instance, years ago, I was asking the angels, many of you were on that health and wellness workshop. That was amazing that the angels did and gave all sorts of remedies. But one thing they're really fantastic at is giving natural remedies about how to heal various different things. And I had asked them, should I take this medicine or should I try the more natural route? And at the time, I saw this old apothecary table with this vial of, like, it had just this fluid in it and this old kind of little vial. And all of a sudden I watched it and it just exploded in my mind's eye. And for me, I immediately knew what that meant. For me, it meant try the natural route, don't take the medicine. And I actually did the natural route and it worked out great. But for me, that was how I translated that vibration. And so many of you are maybe thinking back to images or times where you maybe had something like that, where you had the answer or the solution kind of pop through as either a symbol or an image, or kind of like a snapshot. That's clairvoyance. Then we have clairsentience. Now, clairsentience is when we were kind of touching upon this before, when you're hypersensitive, but it's also connected with empathic. So when you are able to walk into a room and you can kind of just feel the energy, you can get a read on it, you can sense it, you can come into contact with a friend and you know something's off or something's not okay, and they don't need to say anything. You don't even need to see their facial expressions. That's clairsentience. And so for many of you, when you're receiving information through clairsentience, you'll receive it typically, I like to call it almost like a sudden knowing or a instant download. So it's kind of like you didn't know the answer a few moments ago, and now all of a sudden you just know it. You just know it. You don't have any logical way of knowing it, and you shouldn't consciously know it, but you do. You just know it. And so many of you will get gut feelings or instincts, and you'll feel it in the pit of your stomach. That is along the lines of both empathic and clairsentience. So when I'm channeling for all of you in either private sessions or the live Q&As, or when I'm channeling for others, I will typically be sitting there conscious. I'm hearing it like all of you. And so I'm listening to everything that they're saying. I'm aware of what they're saying, but I don't hear it. It's kind of just melding, which is what I was talking about before, of there's just kind of a meshing of our energy. And I just kind of sit there and listen and enjoy like all of you are doing. Now let's see. Now we have, one thing I wanted to point out though, before we move on, is that many of you will ask, well, can I be all three? Can I develop all three so that all of them are wide open? And the answer is absolutely yes. Many of you will find that when you are kind of exploring, and certainly initial stages, you'll find that there's oftentimes one channel that's just more open. It's just easier than others. But absolutely, over the years, I have found that clairaudient was my first, then clairsentient was my next, and then clairvoyance was my third. And so now I'll kind of get them in different ways, but clairaudience is still the way that I channel for my own self. It's still the one that's just the easiest. It's just my path of least resistance. So you'll likely find that there's some that are easier for you to kind of develop and to receive in that way. Which one are you? You may already have an inclination of which one you might be, but I made you a special bonus just in case. And you can play with that when we get off. And you can learn your path of least resistance, some questions and some things that might help guide you into which one you might be. And kind of being able to use that as you kind of flex this muscle going forward of wanting to connect with the higher realms. But many of us receive guidance from the higher realms without ever realizing where it came from. How many of you have ever had, maybe you've had a sudden solution to a problem just kind of pop in, or you thought of someone just before they called, or you were just thinking of someone and they emailed you, or you received this fabulous idea, or this spark of inspiration, or this creative spark just seemingly out of the blue? That's channeling. And I want you to think about how naturally that came in. Every single one of us has had at least one moment where we did that. So every single one of us is able to do this. It's, can I do it on demand? Can I do it when I want to? Yes, it is a learned skill because you already have that ability. It's kind of like learning the piano. If you have your 5 physical fingers on each hand, I suppose every single person could learn it, but certainly you're going to find that there are some that are a little bit further on that path than others. Some are going to find it's more natural than others. Some are going to have more blocks than others. And it's something that every single one of us has the ability to be able to really cultivate this. Now, another thing, I know I have a lot of Reiki masters on here and certainly a lot in the community and in the group, and sending lots of good energy for our workshop, I'm sure. But many will ask, is Reiki a form of channeling? Yes. Reiki is a form of channeling. And so many of you will find that when you are doing Reiki on someone, that you'll get images of maybe the areas in that body that need help. You'll see the blocks. You'll see maybe symbols or something about that particular person that you're working with, or you'll hear it. You'll just hear the information and know where place needs some assistance or what you need to do or how to channel that information to them. And some of you will just feel it. You'll just intuitively know where to go. And that is, yet again, just another form of channeling. And so when you are already flexing that muscle, you're already working on it. And so now it's learning how to cultivate it, how to fine tune it so that you can use it not only for Reiki, but for yourself as well. Now, how many of you have ever had that high pitched ringing in your ear? I'm not talking about anybody that had massive head trauma or some sort of reason medically why you might have that, but how many of you have had it when you just hear this like really high pitched ringing in your ear? That is really, as the angels have explained it, essentially you're receiving the vibration, you're receiving the information from your guides or from the angels or from that higher realm, that collective stream of consciousness. You're tapping into it, but it's kind of like being slightly off on the radio where you hear the static and you can't really make out what's being said, but you know that you hear something. That's what that is. Or how many of you have ever heard, for me, it kind of sounded like fluttering in your ears. It almost sounds like wings, for lack of a better word, just kind of flying past your ear. That again, it's the wink and a nod from the higher realms letting you know, we're here. We're here just to let you know we hear you, we're responding. And so that's just another way of being able to know that you're so close. You're so close to being able to translate that accurately so that you can begin to really utilize that information. Or many of you have heard kind of mumbling, kind of low mumbling of you can hear people talking in your spiritual ears, but you just can't quite make it out what's being said. And oftentimes it happens when you're first waking up or you're first falling asleep and you'll hear that mumbling. Again, wink and a nod from the higher realms, letting you know that you're there, you're hearing it, you're receiving it, but you essentially can't really translate it. You can't really figure out what it is that's being said. How many of you have ever, you've seen the sparkles out of the corners of your eyes? So you're doing something you weren't trying, and all of a sudden you see these sparkles, and then you go and look, and it's gone. Typically, most of the time, it's gone. That is, yet again, you're just translating the non-physical into something that's physical. And the angels are always telling us that there's so much going on right before us, and we have very little conscious awareness of it. We have very little knowledge of all of the different things going on before us. And really, our conscious minds are acting like a gatekeeper because there's a lot of stimuli that is taking place that would be so distracting to try and bring it all through that it tries to narrow down the specifics of what's important. But when you're not trying and you find yourself in a receptive state, you see these sparkles or you see orbs. Orbs are much easier to see for me personally in pictures or on a video. The technology captures it much easier and then you can see those orbs. But again, you're just translating that non-physical presence into something physical and tangible that you can see. Another wink and a nod letting you know they are there. Now, everyone can channel, but the key is learning, how do you do it consciously? How do you get the answers to your questions that are the most important to you? And how do you use this in your day-to-day life to actually improve your life, your decision making, the experiences that you're having, how to get on the right path, how to know when you're on the right path? There are so many different life-changing benefits to being able to use it on a regular basis. And I am testament to that because I didn't grow up channeling on a day-to-day basis. I had those spontaneous moments like many of us, but I didn't have this where I was able to talk to them about any topic I wanted and have discussions about any kind of thing and be able to channel for people all around the world. That certainly wasn't the game plan when I first started to want to communicate with the higher realms. I wanted to do it because I wanted to talk to them. I wanted to help just improve my life. And then it kind of flowed into this lovely, glorious path. But what's important is I want you to know that I'm not any more special. I'm just the same. And so I just have a process that I've kind of narrowed down. I fumbled a lot in the beginning and I did all sorts of trial and error and things that worked and things that didn't. I certainly felt all alone. I was transitioning from the business kind of focused, driven world into a spiritual, metaphysical world. And it felt uncomfortable and I didn't know if I was doing it wrong and I didn't know if I was going crazy, and I wanted to have somebody else that had that knowledge and could say, oh yeah, you're fine, that's exactly what happened to me, or you might want to try it this way, that'll help, or just giving me some feedback at all. And though Rich, my husband, was incredibly supportive, kind of used it as a fun game to be able to use all the time of, what do they think about this, what do they think about that? But I wanted to be able to talk to others that were also doing it, that were thriving at it. And I just want you to know that I'm not any more special, that you can do this too. And so, one of my favorite quotes, and I have many, and they're all around the house, but believe it or not, this one is not an Angelic Guides quote, and it's actually one by Henry Ford. And I really love it because it says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. I love it. I love it for a lot of reasons, but it's really important that when you're trying to connect with the higher realms and you're wanting to communicate, it's really important that you believe you can. And essentially, hearing it from someone else doesn't necessarily make it so. But feeling it, knowing, I know I can do this. I have done it spontaneously before. I have accidentally done it before. That must mean I can do it. And now I just need to figure out, how do I do it more regularly? And so I love that quote. I wanted to share it with you. Now, the obvious question is, okay, so then how do I begin connecting with the higher realms so that I can quickly and easily and effortlessly receive the answers to the questions that are important to me? And so most people, I find, are missing out on a huge piece when they try to connect, and that is they can't quiet their minds. How to quiet their minds long enough to be able to receive that information. And it was something that I definitely struggled with. My mind, I'm a fast moving person, and so my mind does the same, and it kind of chats all day long. I'm sure many of you are thinking, yeah, mine too. How many of you want to have a mute button for it? Well, the angels had shared a really fantastic technique. And if you've been following the Angelic Guides, you know that they're really fantastic at giving analogies and very simple ways of seeing something that we maybe made a little bit more complicated. And they shared this, and it really has been a very effective tool for me to be able to share with you and with so many others of how to be able to quiet your mind on demand anytime. And you can do it in 5 seconds or less, regardless of whether you're a meditation guru or you have that mind chatter going all day long. So they essentially have shared it like this. Let's pretend that we are sitting in a cafe. And since we're pretending, I would like to go to France. So we're sitting in a cafe in France and we are just chit chatting, having a lovely conversation. And all of a sudden, I say to you, "Hey, do you hear that?" What did you do? You got quiet. Your mind got quiet. You didn't have any thoughts and you put it on pause and it was immediate. And so, what's fascinating about that is that regardless of how much experience someone has in channeling, that is the fastest, most effective way that I have found to be able to show someone instantly what it feels like to be in a receptive state of listening. Now, many of you or many of you have said, well, what if I'm not clairaudient? What if I don't hear things? It still works. You're quieting your mind and you're in a receptive state of receiving. So let's do it. Hey, do you hear that? Silence. It's silence. So that's what's so fun about being able to have the angels give us all of these wonderful techniques that are so effective that it's like, oh, why didn't I think of that? That's fantastic. I didn't think of it. I channeled it. And so it's not how long that you're able to hold it, because I got to tell you, in the beginning, I maybe could hold it, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, maybe. So in the beginning, it's just about how often you practice it. So I want you to be driving in the car with the music on. I want you to be in the middle of your work environment. I want you to be in the middle of a busy street or in the elevator or in a quiet place, all different kinds of places. And I want you to ask yourself, preferably probably in your mind, but you could say it out loud. Do you hear that? And what that's going to do is it's teaching you how to be quiet on demand, anytime, anywhere. Because what was important to me is that I know from my own experience, I wanted to be anywhere. I didn't want to have to go home and sit down and put candles on and have a whole meditation for an hour before I could ask a question. I wanted to be able to communicate with them anytime. And I can. I could be in the middle of Times Square and I could be talking to them, and then I could be talking to you, and then I could be talking to them. But that didn't happen overnight. It was a flexed muscle that I started to cultivate. And of course, now that the angels have given all of these shortcuts, it's kind of narrowed it down a whole lot faster for a lot of students. But essentially, learning how to quiet your mind quickly and on demand in any different environment is essential. That's the beginning stages. If you can't do that, then it's going to be really, really hard for you to channel. It's going to be hard for you to channel. So by just flexing that muscle, I want you all walking away today talking to yourselves saying, hey, do you hear that? And then you're going to go quiet. So that is just one of the many different wonderful techniques that the angels have offered and have helped so many to quiet their mind on demand. Now, once you learn how to quiet your mind, how do you begin connecting with the higher realms? Now, our logical minds, they crave proof. And for me, I wanted tons of it. I just couldn't get enough of it. So I would ask for proof for everything. And each time I would get equally as delighted when I would receive something that I couldn't have possibly known consciously. I still do. I still get excited. It's still exciting that I couldn't consciously have known it and then channel it. And so we want constant validation that what we're receiving isn't something that we just made up in our head. So, one of the things that I have found is that most people, when they're first starting to want to communicate with the higher realms, is they're reluctant to use that ability to ask menial questions. and to ask little simple questions or little tiny problems that are just kind of an annoyance. They want to ask big, profound questions like, what's the meaning of life? Or what's my biggest lesson? And so, with that, it's important that you use your channeling ability in your everyday life. That's what it's meant for, of being able to tune to that so that anything that is a bother to you, anything that is a slight challenge to you or a massive challenge can be easily circumvented, you can see from a new perspective to allow you to move around something that was once in your way. And many of you are aware that on the live Q&As, they're fantastic at offering that higher perspective so that we can see things that from our perspective, it seems like there's no other way around it. And you just keep kind of butting your head against something, kind of like a fly that just keeps hitting its head against the screen door, not realizing there is a wide open window that is 2 feet away. And so when we're using this, I want you to remember that there isn't a question that's too small. There isn't. You can ask them anything. They are eager to assist us in every way possible. So when you're wanting to communicate with the higher realms, remember that anything that you're doing throughout the day, something as simple as, hey, are there any closer parking spaces? Then go check it out. What did you get? Did you get yes or no? Go check it out. Go see. And I can tell you, you're going to get excited when you actually receive the answer and essentially see, oh my goodness, it was a yes, and here it is, and it was. It's just fun. So use whatever you're doing as a way to keep flexing this. I get it. We're all busy. I have 3 little boys that keep me busy in and of itself, and then channeling for all of you. And so I didn't have this time to really dedicate hours to cultivating something that, albeit I really wanted, but I didn't have time to spend hours doing it. And so I wanted to be able to use it in my day-to-day life. Now, a lot of you will ask, well, is there any time that we shouldn't try to channel? And the angels say that though there isn't any time that you shouldn't channel, there certainly are times where you're going to find that it's harder. And I will give you a very real experience for my own self. And clearly, I channel for people all around the world. I channel for myself. I'm confident in my ability to channel. And there are times when you're panicked, and you're just when you're panicked, you can't receive information accurately, but energy will still take the path of least resistance. So I remember distinctly our oldest son, Mason, was having an allergic reaction to some construction thing that was taking place in the house. And he started to blow up, like all of his features, and I was scared to death he wasn't going to be able to breathe. And we rush him to the hospital, and I'm completely panicked. Anybody that's a mom knows you're just like completely panicked. So we bring him and they rush him in, and they can't find his vein. He's all puffy and they can't find his vein. And I'm completely freaked out. And I'm like, just do whatever it takes. I don't care. And this woman comes in, and she has this massive, like, it's actually pretty, but it was large, tattoo on her arm that said, "This too shall pass." And it just had this beautiful angel feather on it. And it was just a moment of me resetting and just kind of taking a breath, knowing that at the moment, that was the path of least resistance for them to let me know, calm down, that you're not doing him any service by freaking out, and it's going to be okay. Relax. And a few moments later, she was able to actually get the needle in and give him the IV and to make sure he could breathe. But energy will always take the path of least resistance, but there are certain times where it is definitely more challenging to calm yourself down and to receive the information accurately. Many of you will ask, well, what about when you're sick? And I find that when I channel and I'm sick, it's actually a nice pause. It's a pause from any of the pain I was having. I don't feel like I need to cough. I don't have a headache. I don't have a stomach ache because I'm in such a high vibration in order to channel. But it's waiting for me as soon as I'm done. And it usually only takes a few minutes for me to come back down and ground. And then I feel that. But just because you're sick doesn't mean that you can't channel. And so your intention behind it of wanting to connect with a high vibrational being is paramount. It's very important that that's who you're trying to connect with. It's not about not feeling good or just being sad. It's about your intention of wanting the guidance and wanting the help from your guides, your angels, your higher self. Should I ask the questions out loud or should I ask them in my mind? Entirely up to you. It's up to you. I do find Come to think of it, actually, I guess when I'm talking to the angels and I'm talking for my own self, I ask them in my mind. I don't say it out loud, but when I'm talking to animals, I don't know if it's maybe because I'm looking at them and we're sitting there having a conversation. I tend to talk out loud to them. I'm sure many of you are like, yeah, I talk to my animals out loud. So you don't need to, because really those words are just the vessel that's transporting that vibration. But you essentially can pick whichever one, and maybe the environment at the time might be indicative of whether you want to say something out loud or not. But either way, it doesn't really matter. You're still sharing that energy and they can hear no matter what. They're always receiving that information. Now, um, how do we get our guides' attention? Our guides are always tuned into us. We're relearning how to tap into it so that we can and find a balance, because we're from the non-physical realms. We came here to have a physical experience. So it's not about just living in the clouds and not grounding and really having a physical experience, but trying to find the balance between still receiving that information and connecting with that collective stream of consciousness, but also still enjoying and using the information they're giving us so that we can improve our life, so that we can improve our life and the lives of others or our family, or lots of different ways that you can use channeling to certainly augment and benefit many different aspects of your life. Now, I want you to make a list today. And I know many of you are going to walk off and kind of ask yourself, do you hear that? And that's fantastic. I want you to do it in all different kinds of situations. But I also want you to make a list. Make a list of maybe 5 to 10 questions. And I want you to think of questions that are simple. Remember, try not to make it profound, where it's a make it or break it in your life of, is this the right person for me? Or what's the meaning of life? Or what's my biggest lesson I'm supposed to learn with the relationship with my mother? Don't pick things that are already kind of heated or an exaggerated experience that you're having. Pick things that are easy, that are simple, that you can easily verify and easily validate. It doesn't matter. It's not about the importance of the question. It's about getting the muscle flexed so that you get a hang, or get the hang of doing it on demand, so that you can use it anytime a question pops into your mind, anytime you're thinking about things. That there's just all sorts of opportunities that you have throughout your day of that you could use. I remember specifically, we were sitting in this huge traffic jam, and it just seemed to go on for miles, and we had no idea when it was going to be done, and there was no way out. And I remember asking the angels, well, what's the reason for this? And they said that there was a 3-car accident up on the left-hand side. Not that I was happy that there was an accident, but I was so validated when I got up there and saw that there was an accident with 3 cars. And luckily, it didn't really seem to be that bad, but it was enough to kind of jam the traffic. But these are just instances. Use these in your everyday life and see what you get. Now, I want you to take it slow and try not to berate yourself if you don't get it right, but play with this. Be more playful in this. Because remember, channeling is a natural ability. Every single one of us, without exception, has the ability to channel. We were born with that ability. We just oftentimes became so enamored with the physical reality that you essentially start to use that as the feedback that this is real and this is not. But all of us, to varying degrees, still have that ability to tap into that information. And the more you use it, the stronger it gets. And the stronger it gets, the easier it is to trust it. Now, I'm sure many of you have lots of questions, and I promise we will get to those, and we can talk about all sorts of channeling questions and things that are kind of popping into your mind as you're going along. Hopefully you're writing those questions down and taking notes of all of these different things that we're sharing. But essentially, you are interested in channeling because you want to improve your life. Because really, in a nutshell, one way or another, you're looking for that guidance. You're looking for that overview or that perspective to be able to circumnavigate those different challenges that we inevitably have. And I will tell you this, just because you channel doesn't mean you have a golden pass and you don't have any challenges. You have challenges, you just find ways around them much faster, and things don't feel so suffocating because you have access to someone that's in that helicopter crew that can see the Grand Canyon as you're kind of fumbling your way around and trying to figure out how to get out. When you're down there in the Grand Canyon and you're not listening to that feedback from up above, it's going to be a really challenging situation to try and figure out and navigate what's going to be the best path to get out of there. But if you're listening from the helicopter crew and they say, oh, just go up 1 mile to the right and you're out, you say, that was a whole lot easier. It's not that you don't have challenges, you just find your way around them much easier. And I could literally spend the entire day talking to you about all different ways that they have helped me in personal situations. They have helped our kids in personal situations. They have helped our family, and certainly thousands of others that do private sessions and the live Q&As and different ways of being able to offer that perspective so that you can essentially be able to move forward with greater ease. It's about making it easier, making it simpler, making it not so challenging and not feeling so alone. So, one thing that I learned in business, and I've kind of carried it through, is finding someone that is where you want to be and then seeking them out and learning from those experiences is one of the easiest ways and the best ways to shortcut all of the trial and error that they inevitably actually have naturally gone through. And essentially, you could look at a chef and they've taken years to cultivate this wonderful recipe through trial and error and different things that they've tasted. And now they've boiled this down, and this is the best way to do it, the fastest way to do it. And it gives you the best taste. You could figure that out on your own, but you could also go and figure that out with someone else that's already walked that path. And so for me, I always tend to try and find someone that I'm looking to be where I essentially have in mind that goal, and I seek out someone that I want to be where they are. And so I just want to take a few moments to invite you into the full Learn to Channel course. I'm trying to pack this workshop with as much as I possibly can to help answer a lot of those initial questions that many of you have when you first begin to play with the idea of channeling, and trying not to jam pack it so much that you feel like your head is spinning and you don't really know where to begin, because we've all had those classes at one point or another where you're just kind of mind blown and there's so much information that you just kind of feel stuck in your tracks and you don't really know what to do because there's just too much to kind of fumble through. So the angels and I have, I like to say, collaborated on building this course of really, I like to say, I bring the human perspective, the side that has tons of self-doubts and worries about whether you're doing it right and worries about whether you're actually making it up or not. And they bring their lovely higher perspective of, oh, you could just do it this way, and that would make it a whole lot easier. And so together, I like to say that we found a nice balance between really kind of addressing a lot of those concerns that many of us have, but also helping you around them, because I have been there. I have felt that. I did that. I didn't just wake up and channel like this my whole life. I had to flex this muscle and cultivate it. And it took probably a lot longer than it really needed to. And I had to kind of circumnavigate over all sorts of obstacles that I placed there unknowingly. But being able to learn from someone else and others along the way is always helpful. And so in this, my goal is to share all of those tools and those shortcuts that I learned along the way, and helping you to effectively connect with the higher realms. And not only will you have me holding your hand through this entire process and sharing tips and experiences and live coaching calls as you inevitably will go through the process and hit some sort of roadblock and kind of help you around it, but you'll also have the angels as well as the community of other students that are also doing the very same thing you are at various different stages, and they're learning how to get through those obstacles so that they can begin to trust in themselves, more importantly. So really, this is a complete step-by-step program that can take you from just dipping your toe into this. I realize all of you are at various different stages, all the way to helping you to really use this in your everyday life so that you can begin to navigate and understand the difference and decipher between that mind chatter and what you're receiving. It's kind of like trying to teach you in this hour and a half how to speak an entirely new foreign language. There's only so much I can jam pack in before your mind just kind of starts to, it's too much to take in at once. That doing it is the best way to learn. And then when you hit an obstacle, having someone say, here, that happened to me too. Or having other students that are saying, oh, I'm having the same issue, I'm having that problem, here's what I did. Or someone else that's having a breakthrough and you think, oh, that's amazing, I want that. Having the community, I find, is a really effective tool in being able to learn together. It's something I love about our live Q&As, and something that is going to be offered just for those that are really serious about connecting with the higher realms and taking that one step further of really being able to utilize this. Now, this is a 4-week course, and it is built with 4 modules with 14 lessons that cover really from the very beginning all the way to what you can do moving forward after you take this course, and what other fun ways. I tried to make it as fun as possible. And so we really loaded this up with lots of exercises, because essentially one size doesn't fit all. And what resonates with me doesn't necessarily resonate with you. And so you'll find that when you're taking it, you'll find some exercises are easier than others, and some things are more challenging. And so you can go back and kind of play with the ones and see maybe the progress you've made. We have a lot of students that like to go back to particular lessons because they like it, to be able to really enjoy this experience and be able to use a lot of the different material that we kind of put together very deliberately to bring you through this process step by step by step. Now, module 1 is all about building a solid foundation for clear communication. So really it's about getting the foundation, just as you would if you were building a house. If that foundation isn't built right, the house, no matter how great it is going to eventually crumble. So having a clear and solid foundation that you can build this upon, and understanding not only the concepts and the techniques, but kind of clearing and wiping the slate clean of some of the concerns and doubts that you have maybe, or the reservations you have about being a little nervous to communicate or really to try and experience what that feels like for you uniquely. Then we have module 2, which is, we get into the fun stuff of really making that connection and helping you to align your chakras, but also to find out the name of your guides or your angels or the collective, or really feel what their energy feels like, and starting to get physical sensations of what that might be for you. It's unique for all of us, so it's always interesting to hear from the other students what their experience is, and maybe you might find that yours is completely unique, or someone else is having something similar to you. Then we move into module 3, which is all about connecting and allowing and releasing. So essentially, it's about really getting into this process now of not only making that connection, but now using it. Using that connection so that you can ask these different questions. And inevitably, we all have stumbling blocks. And so being able to go back to these particular lessons so that you can find ways around them, and having others and myself and the angels to assist you as well with a different perspective, certainly can kind of propel you forward on this path much faster. And then we have module 4, which is a really fun one because it's all about strengthening the channeling ability that you've been developing, and what fun ways you can do that, of flexing that muscle and using that, and having the opportunity of the community together of what other ways you can play with. It's always more fun to learn something together, and it's always more fun to have others you can communicate with that may be going through similar situations, or that you can play intuitively. Wonderful thing about connecting with energy is that there's no space and time restriction. So where you are physically doesn't matter. And that's the wonderful part, is that you have the opportunity of being able to connect with people all around the world, as you are now. So we also jam-packed this with tons of bonuses that really were meant to dovetail and help you as you're moving along this process. And one of those bonuses is all about the our chakras and the complete alignment guide of aligning our chakras. So it gives you a clear depiction of what those chakras are doing, how to know if you might have a block in those particular chakras, and how to clear it, how to get it aligned again. Because, of course, everything being in alignment makes it much easier for you to move forward with clarity. Then we also have a bonus that I put together specifically because, as much as you may think, oh my goodness, if I could talk to the angels, I would have a billion questions. Yes, but believe it or not, many students end up hitting a roadblock of not really knowing what to ask in the beginning. You have all these profound questions, but you don't really trust yourself to ask those questions quite yet. So you want to start with simpler ones, but then you kind of get lost. You don't really know what questions to ask. And that's why I made this bonus, because it has 40 different questions and they're broken down into different categories of really helping you can use them verbatim, or you can just kind of use them as a template of these are the kinds of questions I would recommend you ask. Then these are the kinds of questions. When you feel confident with this, move to this. When you feel confident with this, move to this. And so you can use them as a guide to kind of help, because over the years, I've continually not only learned from my experience, but I've learned from the students going through the process, because not everyone has the same stumbling blocks. And so maybe something that was challenging for me is easy for you. And maybe something that was challenging for you, I might have soared through. So it's really being able to utilize that and come together, playing in all sorts of really fun ways. It's always fun to learn while you're playing, right? So then we also have the guided meditation of complete peace of mind. And a lot of students actually like to use this outside of the course. It is a channeled guided meditation that was really effective in helping you to get that peace of mind, getting you in a place of peace. For those of you that are maybe suffering with insomnia, might be a good thing to listen to as you're falling asleep. But it's also a really good way of getting you in a place of just contentment, peace of mind, no anxiety. You're just at a place that feels good. And then kind of reaching off from that foundation of wanting to connect with the higher realms. And of course, the Learn to Channel Mastermind weekly live coaching is something that I'll come on there. And as you're going through this course, you're going to have questions. And I'm going to go on there, and maybe you don't have questions that week, but you're going to learn from other people's questions as well. And maybe those questions are something that you didn't have, and now suddenly you're finding it's useful. So learning in that community and coming up with those questions, you could think of it, those live Q&As that we do on Sunday, which is lovely, and we have a wonderful community, but that's for everyone. These live Q&As are just for the students that are going through and really wanting to flex this muscle in being able to communicate with the higher realms and answering your questions so that I can be there with you and hold your hand through this process. And another fun part is we offer a certification. So for those of you that are spiritual junkies and you absolutely love taking all sorts of spiritual courses and just want another notch in your belt, we offer a certification as well, so that way you can show that you have been trained in channeling and that you can begin to flex that muscle using it in whatever way you deem fit. And so I could go on and on about the life-changing benefits. I could give you story after story, not only in my life, but in others and in students and in people that are emailing me daily about the experiences they're having from the perspectives that the angels are sharing. But essentially, it's about the life-changing benefits that you'll have for your own self as you're moving through this process and being able to cultivate this ability in the fastest path possible. Of course, being able to flex this, but it's kind of like learning a language. You need to be immersed in that experience. You don't know some of the things you don't know. And so it takes that experience where you suddenly want to have a conversation with someone and you're trying to communicate, and now you've hit a roadblock. Now what? And so by doing it, I can help you through that process. So of course, I always say that having the angels is kind of like having the best life coach in the entire world that's always cheering for you and constantly rooting for you and kind of continuously kind of summoning you on to, it's okay, you're all right, you're doing fine. Each time you want to kind of fall down and crumble, they're there kind of picking you back up, and helping you see from a new perspective. So if you're ready to connect with your guides and change your life forever, I can say that it truly did change my life. It changed it in vast amount of ways. I'm in a completely different place than I ever would have been. And certainly I didn't even intend in the beginning that it would lead me here, but I'm so happy that it did. And it's leading me with all of you and wonderful souls around the world that have this beautiful light, that are wanting to connect and share that amongst each other. So if you are ready to go ahead and get started, we offered two different options. And you're probably thinking, yes, okay, how do I get started? So this is something where you'll have lifetime access. You will be able to, as long as you have the internet, you'll be able to log on and you'll be able to access the information anytime, anywhere, on any device. And you don't have to worry about saving the entire course on a hard drive and then it crashes. We save it on our platform and it's in your members area, and you have access to all the other students as well, to be able to enjoy and commingle. So we broke this up into two different options. We did the more flexible for those of you that would rather pay over installments and do 3 installments. You can begin today at $125 US, and you'll have access just the same regardless of which option you choose. And then we have the second option for those of you that would prefer to just make the payment and be done, is $297 US. And that gives you a savings of, I believe, $78 when you just pay upfront. But some of you may be more interested in doing the flexible plan. But either way, both of them will give you access to the entire course. It will give you access to this 4-week course. It'll give you access to 5 weeks of the coaching live Q&As. So an extra bonus week for extra practice. We're going to practice. We're going to have fun. We're going to play with the other students, and you're going to see what else you get and some of the stumbling blocks they're having. But for those of you that are ready to dive in and you know this is for you, I am so excited to have you on board. And if you want to purchase while we're on here, as long as we're live, and I'm going to answer your questions, all sorts of channeling questions, as long as we're live, I'll give you 4 extra weeks of coaching live Q&As. So it's a really big value, and you'll still get to be part of that community of learning and playing and moving past. Even though you've taken the whole course, you'll be able to go back and pick the ones you want to kind of revisit either way, but you'll have 4 extra ones if you want to dive in and you know this is for you. I'd be happy to welcome you with open arms. Now, for those of you that feel more comfortable, I know money back guarantees are always comforting to all of us, and I know you're going to love it. I know how much I've poured into this, and you're going to love the community. You're going to love the course, and it has a lot of information. But I offer a 10-day money back guarantee so that you can get in there and you can have a live coaching call and you can feel the warmth. If you're enjoying yourself on here and you were having fun with the different crystals and you're having fun with the different information and the tidbits and do you hear that technique? You're going to love it. It's going to be a lot of fun. So you will be able to log in from anywhere and you'll have instant access as soon as you purchase it. And you can purchase that from, many of you are familiar with the Angelic Guides website, but it's angelic-guides.com/learn-to-channel. And I'm going to type this into the chat for you so that way you have it. And it's easier. Let's see. Let me get that for you. There you go. So there is the link, and you just want to put www. But nonetheless, I am so excited to invite all of you, and I would be more than happy to dive into some of the questions that you have. I know you've been holding on to those, and I want to know what those are. And this live Q&A that we're doing is brand new. So for those of you that have purchased the course, you always have the updated version of it. So you will always have access to it. You don't have to rebuy anything. You don't have to do anything. So every time we add to the course, you're always going to have access to whatever improvements we make. And as I said, I'm always learning from the students. I'm always learning from all of you of the different experiences that you're having. And each time we come in to something else and I think, oh, you know what? That would be really helpful, or that would be really interesting as we move through this process together. We're always adding more. So this live Q&A is brand new and you're going to love it. And so we're going to do that each week and you will have the opportunity to dive in. So if you know this is for you and you want to be part of it, just hashtag I'm in. I want to see it and I want to be part of it. So let's see what kinds of questions that you have. And some of you chose to ask questions ahead of time. I, of course, see tons of questions every week from all of you about the live Q&A about channeling. Oh, and you know what? I forgot to give you, I wanted to give you the how to discover your path of least resistance. So that is at angelic-guides.com/discover. I'll email that to you though. I have all of you that registered on here, so I will email that to you and you can play with that and you can tell me what your path of least resistance is and kind of play with it and flex it as you're building that list and playing with the do you hear that technique. So I am so excited to have all of you and I'm seeing lots of I'm in, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Let me see. Carol, Lori, welcome. I am so excited. And Kate and let's see. I don't think this is your first name. I'm going to get excited to learn your first name, but Wobber8 and Estra, so excited. And Kim, get in here. Lily and Linda, I'm in. So this is going to be fun. Funny girl cracks me up. Oh, good. We could use somebody funny in our group. So loving it. Now, you're welcome to ask any questions that you have about either the course or you're welcome to ask about some channeling questions and you're going to get a little taste of this is what we're going to do. You're going to have me and we're going to have some fun one-on-one time where really you're going to have me and all of the rest of the community here enjoying all of the experiences. And we're going to hear some really interesting, I've got some students in there that have amazing experiences, like really cool experiences. And I'm excited to hear what some of yours are going to be. And of course, I can share some of mine as well of some really like amazing experiences that I have had personally, which gives you that much more excitement. So, and yes, Lori, I will send you an email of the course and the link as well. So you will have that and you can get in there and you'll just go straight to the angelic-guides.com/learn-to-channel. So go ahead and sign up and get in there. And the live Q&As will be recorded. So that way I know a lot of you are all different schedules and some of you it's the middle of the night when we do those lives. So it will be recorded and you can ask your questions ahead of time for the members only section and you'll be able to get in there and have a really great time. So let's see. Now there were a few questions that, let me see, where did I put those? Yes, there were a few questions that I thought were very good, and I thought I'd address those while you're kind of typing in whatever questions you might have. And so one of you had asked, does diet play a role in being able to connect? I find this question really interesting. And so for those of you that go on the live Q&As, you see, I drink a ton of water, like a ton. But when it comes to diet, I really don't find that there's anything that you can't eat. Everyone has different diets that resonate with you. I happen to be vegan. Our family's vegan, but I don't find that if you're not vegan, you can't channel. I find that when you're eating a bit more of a cleaner diet, you probably feel better. And as a result, you're clearer just in mind and you don't have that mental fog. But it's not like you can only eat really healthy food in order to be able to channel. You certainly can. You can have all sorts of cheats, but drinking a ton of water does actually impact my ability. And now it's become so second nature that I always can channel and I can tap into that quickly. And it's kind of like knowing how to go back and forth to frequently, like kind of your favorites on your dial, that you just kind of click it and you go there. But I get headaches if I'll channel and I wasn't drinking enough. I'll get a headache. And so that's why you've always seen me, especially when I'm channeling, I drink a ton of water because it is a wonderful amplifier. And it's also a wonderful way of transporting and carrying that vibration and kind of flushing out some of that toxin. And that's why every time after we get off um, for those of you that have had private sessions, you notice that it definitely is something that if you're drinking water and they tell you drink pure water after this for the next 24 hours after the session, that's why, because it helps to kind of flush out, not only grounding physically, but vibrationally as well. Should we use pendulums or angel cards to connect? Do they actually give us clear guidance? Yeah, they do. And there isn't anything wrong with using those. And so there are many of you that have emailed me or asked me about using these different types of ways to connect or automatic writing. That is, in fact, the way that I first began channeling is automatic writing. It felt the easiest for me. And there's no right way to do it, but essentially you'll find that eventually you kind of grow out of those, that they're wonderful uses in the beginning, but eventually they're inhibiting and you want to ask questions that maybe are a little bit bigger than yes and no, or you want to ask questions that are a little different. But what they're doing is it's essentially giving you feedback of that vibration right here, right now. So you have that feedback of being able to use different tools, different whatever you feel drawn to, pendulums or angel cards or tarot cards or whatever you feel drawn to is something that I would never say you shouldn't draw. You shouldn't use it. You'll just likely find that it eventually begins to be clunky and in the way, kind of like automatic writing became for me. And I still have that. I constantly am writing more in it. Just almost now it's become more of a journal of what they say because they always say it so much nicer than I do. And so I like to go back and read it like they said it. And that thing is like 500 pages now, and I still have it. It's a Word document. Does everyone have a guardian angel? Yes, they do. Everyone has a guardian angel, but I'll tell you this. The people that are not only drawn to these kinds of messages, but you're aware of your guardian angels, you're aware that you have one, even if you can't hear them yet or acknowledge them or get any feedback that they're there, you still know you have one and you welcome them. You oftentimes have what I like to call, it's kind of like an entourage, where you have a lot of non-physical beings that are continually kind of coming in and assisting in lots of different ways. Another one of you sent in the question, what's the difference between angels and spirit guides? The angels have explained it as spirit guides typically tend to be beings that have experience here in the physical, that have incarnated physically, whereas angels typically haven't incarnated physically. But with that, with all of those different spirit guides and essentially the different beings that you're connecting with, I find that spirit guides tend to come in for chapters. And what I mean by that is maybe you're in a chapter of your life where you're having children and they feel as though they could be more of assistance in that. Or maybe you're in a chapter of your life where you're caring for your parents and they feel as though they could be more of assistance in that. Or you're going through school or you're dealing with death. There's a lot of different chapters that go on in our life. And I find that there are different spirit guides that tend to feel more capable of really assisting us in many ways to be able to help us through those different chapters or challenges that we're having. And just like each of us have our own unique, we have our specialties, we have our interests, we have our passions. Some of you love cars, some of you are great at gardening, some of you are wonderful artists, some of you are Reiki masters. You all have your areas of expertise, and so too do the beings in the non-physical, and calling in different ones and connecting with those collectives is always fascinating because there's lots of connecting that you can do once you really flex this muscle and play with this. Let's see, what other questions do we have in here? Loving it, seeing lots of I'm ins. Now let's see, what questions do we have? Donna, every time I try to quiet my mind, I fall asleep. Am I really asleep? How can I stay alert to receive? Well, here's one way that you can actually use around that is that you can, if you fall asleep, And it's a wonderful way to kind of quiet your mind and get yourself in a really peaceful frame of mind before you're falling asleep. Set your intention before you fall asleep that you're going to communicate with your guides while you're sleeping. And there are wonderful things that you can bring back in your dream state. And have a journal. Have it ready because those fade fast. So have a journal or a pen or a pencil that is ready there for you. And whatever you recall, the second you wake up, or maybe you wake up in the middle of the night, write it down and then go back to sleep. And you'll find that with flexing that muscle, you'll start to bring through some information and some solutions. And sometimes you might, not that I want you to exaggerate a problem before you go to sleep, but go to sleep with the intention of being guided to the solution or seeing it from a new vantage point or a perspective. And dreams can be very telling of what's going on subconsciously or what you're doing or some experiences that you're having right now. So use that. It's not so bad. You could quiet your mind and then fall asleep and get some information and wake up. I used to think it was so amazing. Edgar Casey would fall asleep on books and then wake up having all the knowledge that was in there. I have yet to figure out how to do that, but that would be really cool. Okay, so let's see. Kate, I want to practice channeling. And if I practice on a friend, will my answers for them be influenced by what I already know about them? Here's what I've found. It's actually easier to channel for people you don't know. It really is. You can certainly practice on a friend. There's no reason not to. I practiced, well, secretly, I practiced on one of my best friend's dogs when I first started learning how to communicate with animals. And I would ask the dog all sorts of things like, hey, what's your favorite food? Or what did you do today? Or, what's your favorite toy? Or something like that. And then I would say something because I didn't know the answer to those. And I would say something to my friend and then get that validation. And I was like, yes, I got it right. But play with your friend, but try and ask questions you don't know the answer to consciously. See what you get. Ask questions that, don't infringe on their free will, but just kind of ask questions that could be of assistance to them, or maybe they want to play with you and they want to see what they get and they'll ask you questions and then just see what comes through. Just play with it. Be more playful about it. Many people make it so serious that it has to be so heavy, and it's not. It's more lighthearted. It's fun. It's enjoyable, and you can kind of just see what you get and get that feedback of, yeah, that really resonates. That lands. That makes sense to me. You might find, or you can also play with others, which is also why it's nice to be in the community. And you don't know a lot about all of these different people that are from different cultures and around the world that maybe you can play with them and channel with them and ask questions together. You can kind of do little meetups, and that way you can kind of flex that muscle with people that you don't really know all that well, but are still wanting to play with you. Always wonderful. Let's see. And Jeanette, super excited. I'm in. I'm so excited you're in. So Virginia, when you quiet the mind and it's dark, can you get stuck in that darkness? I'm pretty sure that's my fear. I'm assuming you mean not physical darkness. I'm assuming you mean just the energy of that darkness of kind of getting lost in a place that doesn't feel good. No, you can certainly get stuck there for a little while, but when you're wanting to connect with the higher realms and you're wanting to play with it, we really do walk through a lot of the different, because you're not alone. A lot of people have different fears that you can look at and say, I don't know why I'm afraid of this, but I just am. I'm just afraid that this is going to happen, or I'm afraid that I'm going to hear all these other beings that I don't want to talk to, or maybe some things that I don't want to know end up coming up. And these are all real fears that people have, and we all have different ones that come up. But what I will say is that when you find yourself in a dark place vibrationally or with your thoughts, the wonderful thing about it is that you always have the ability, you never stay there forever, but you also have the ability to learn how to get out of it faster by redirecting your thought. And it doesn't take more than once to know you don't want to be there. So it sounds like you've already experienced something like that. Many of us have, where you kind of get into your thoughts a bit too hard and you're thinking in a negative way and it doesn't feel good. You know how that ends. You know it doesn't feel good. So learning how to pivot, learning how to direct the thoughts faster or onto some things that the angels like to call um, positive triggers really helps to navigate out of that so that you don't get stuck in a place that doesn't feel good. You know how to go and use something else as leverage to kind of climb out of that hole you accidentally fell in. So, hope that helps. Um, let's see. Um, Funny girls crack me up. I just signed up for the course. Thank you. My name is Lee. I'm so excited, Lee. Um, da, 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 da. Let's see. Do you know why, when I get to the receptive state, I hear sounds of waves sort of in my head? I know it sounds weird. No, it actually sounds pretty cool. Um, Sorry, I was listening to the angels because I wasn't sure. They were saying that essentially that each of us have positive triggers, and that when we find ourselves in a um, in a place where we're trying to soften those thoughts, we're trying to get quiet. We have those positive triggers. For me, it's the sound of rain. Everybody that knows me knows I have sound machines all over the house. I love the sound of rain, and it's the most peaceful thing for me to hear. And so that is almost like your positive trigger of just trying to relax you into a place that just is calming. And that's a wonderful place to be. That's a wonderful thing to have. So it's not weird at all. It's just indicative of something that you may find to be peaceful, of just kind of allowing you to relax into that, almost the way you'd use a guided meditation, of using some peaceful music or a peaceful journey to bring you to a state of quiet contemplation. So that's not weird at all. Let's see. Let's see. Now, the members group, Victoria, will be launched this week. And we are essentially going to open that up to all of you that have ever purchased the course. So we're going to have a lot of people in there. And or this version of the course, really. And so essentially you'll be in there and enjoying the group, and you'll also be able to have that community feel with one another. And we see lots of lovely people in here and being able to communicate with each other. And also, I'm excited to dive in with all of you and have the angels give their feedback as well, because I don't know the answers to everything, but luckily they do. So we'll bring them. Let's see. We have enough time for another question or two. Let's see. Linda, the sound of the ocean. Yes, that's, well, on my sound machine, it's either the sound of rain or the sound of the ocean. And we grew up by the ocean, and then we moved down to North Carolina. That was the thing I missed the most. It wasn't even that I didn't even want to swim in the ocean. I just wanted to be by it. I just wanted to look at it. So I hear you on that. Let's see. You are very welcome, Lee. Is it Lee or Leah? It's Lee, right? And Victoria, yes, very excited. Let's see. Barbara, rain is mine as well. When I hear waves, I feel like it's the earth breathing. Oh, I like that. I'm going to use that. Donna, must be why I'm having the urge to go to the beach lately. The water is really clearing. And so a little tidbit of after I get off the live Q&As, or anytime I do a really big workshop and there's a lot of people on there, of course, I feel a lot of the energy of everyone kind of on here, that I go immediately outside. It's a wonderful way to transmute and kind of have some extra assistance in being able to release that energy that tends to kind of all come streaming at me. And so for those of you that are hypersensitive and you find yourself in places that feels like a lot, but go outside and just walk. You'll find even just a few minutes, if you can just walk outside. If the weather permits, walk outside barefoot is even better. But being outside is really, really effective for transmuting that energy. And of course, crystals are great for that too. So let's see. Irene, does the membership end after the 5 weeks? No, it doesn't. You have it for life. So you can enjoy the course forever, and you can go back and play with that. And you can enjoy the group and the comments in the group as well. But the coaching calls will be through the course. So you'll have 5 automatically that you'll get as a result of just being in the course. And then for those of you that purchase while we're on here, and we're still live, so as long as you purchase while we're on here, you'll have the extra 4 as well. And then I'm going to load your members area with tons and tons and tons of bonuses to really help you move through this process. And so I'm always looking to improve. I'm always looking to improve the course. As many of you know, when you take a workshop of mine or any courses of mine, you're always going to have access to it for a lifetime. You just will have it in your members area, and you'll be able to log back in and tap into it. It's one of those things where we decided we got smart over the years. Too many people started losing it, the course, when we had it on their hard drive. So we put it on ours, and that way you can just go ahead and log in. All right. So yes, Carrie, all of you will have those coaching calls that are already in here. Now, I hope that all of you have had a wonderful time on here. I hope that you enjoyed yourself and had a really exciting time with all of us together as a community. Certainly, I am looking to welcome you in with open arms, and the more the merrier. It's always enjoyable, and looking forward to next week starting the live Q&As that are going to be coaching just for the members only, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I will send this replay out to you, and that way you can go back and you can re-listen to it and kind of soak up that information. I tried to share as much as I possibly could without kind of overloading you, so that you could feel motivated and inspired to take action now. And so make those questions, make that list of maybe 5 or 10 questions, and play with this. And whether you choose to join us in the members area or you want to flex this on your own, I am making you promise me that you will flex this muscle, because it is absolutely something that is incredibly valuable and has changed so many lives, and I want it to change yours too. So hope you had a wonderful time. Looking forward to the next live Q&A on Sunday, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, everyone. Have a great one. Hope you enjoyed it.